Hey everyone, welcome to the very first podcast here on Howzat Sport. Today we're joined by rising MMA fighter Colby Thicknesse. Colby trains at a freestyle MMA gym down in Wingdale, New South Wales. Colby, firstly mate, thank you for coming on. How are you going?
More than happy to come on, and I'm doing very well, my friend. I'm feeling good.
Awesome man, keen for this. So obviously, one of the things that amazes me the most is obviously in Australia, I moved here about 10 years ago from the UK, and it's
Yep.
like the rugby league and AFL like sporting country. How growing up did you manage to find MMA?
Well, like you said, it's sort of AFL, rugby, and all that sort of thing. So I actually was doing rugby league when I was little, when I was about 5 or 6. And then I'm a twin actually. So me and my twin, we always used to fight. So Dad took us down to the local PCYC, which is like a youth club sort of thing where they have activities and that for kids.
Yeah.
And we just did a wrestling class and got hooked on it. And then, yeah, that pretty much started my training journey. It was great. I could sort of go into the mats, fight my brother and not get in trouble for it. So it was a perfect sport for me.
Yeah, growing up with a brother, I could imagine that would have been the perfect situation. I could imagine.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's super competitive. Not now that I'm fighting, he doesn't really fight. There's no competitiveness between us.
Yeah,
But when we're both competing from that young age, from probably about 6 to 14, there was always that super competitive edge with each other. So it's sort of good thing to build that competitive mindset because you're always competing with someone.
yeah. I mean, I can imagine that's pretty good for you growing up. So obviously, you fight out a freestyle MMA gym there. I've got a few questions about that gym. Number one, how is it with Coach Joe Lopez? Because I see a lot of antics on social media. I mean, it just seems like it's a good place for you to be training.
Oh man, it's such an unreal environment. Like the skill level of guys we got there, even just a sort of casual hobbyist, is such a high level of guys. Like we've got people there who train 3 or 4 times a week who could easily be pro fighters and that. And that's just for skill wise, and like the actual like community environment there's like perfect. Like
Yeah,
everybody's treated the same on the mats. As you see by the stories, there's plenty of banter that goes on, plenty of jokes, plenty of laughs. It's a really good environment.
yeah. Does the vacuum not work there? Because I'm convinced every time that I see it, there's always some dust left over under a cone or something.
Nah, that's normally just me getting stitched up. If I don't do a good job at cleaning with someone, we'll just clean it up, leave it cone there, and sort of make
Yeah.
a mockery of it. But on the vacuum, that vacuum is terrible. Useless. You're better off just using a broom.
No, it genuinely seems like it's a good place for you to train there. It always seems like it's a good, down-to-earth, fun gym. So,
Oh yes, spot on.
yeah. So in Australia, how was your time as an amateur? I know obviously you went 7-1 as an amateur. Tell me a little bit about that journey. How was it all from start to finish? Obviously, playing rugby league, it must have been quite a jump to making your first amateur fight.
Yeah, so I finished up rugby league when I think my last season was under 13, so when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And that was purely because I was like 50 kilos dripping wet. And you're coming into the age 12, 13-year-olds where some blokes are like halfway through puberty and like 80 kilos and they have little beards. And I'm 50 kilos wet with not an ounce of muscle on me, just getting squashed every week. So I was like, the sport's probably not the sort of best thing for me now. And I was pretty successful in wrestling. I won a few state titles, won nationals and that. So then I thought I might as well go over to the MMA side of things and just sort of test my luck with that. Because I originally started at the gym just doing kickboxing classes because I was sort of burnt out from wrestling and like footy and all that sort of grappling stuff. I'm like, I just want to punch and kick people now. But probably about 6 months into training, my coach is like, come try this jiu-jitsu class, Joe. So I did that. I got hooked on jiu-jitsu, did heaps of jiu-jitsu comps. And when I was just about to turn 18, he's like, do you want to fight once you're able to? And I was like, man, for sure. Then we sort of transitioned the training from jiu-jitsu and striking as two separate disciplines. We started trying to mend them together as one to become like better at mixed martial arts and that. And then, yeah, I started my amateur career. I went, what was it, 8-1? So I had, no, it's good. I mean, I forget sometimes. I even forget now. It's weird. Like I finally hit like the 10 fight mark, and it always seems surreal to say it like that. But yeah, so I went for 8-1. I had my first fight in a local show just down on Wollongong Wars. Got the second round TKO finish. Had 2 more fights after that. Got both second round rear naked, first round rear naked. Then I suffered my first loss. So I always say that was sort of like my biggest blessing. Took a fight short notice, had it terrible game plan, wasn't eating really good out of camp, wasn't training sort of as hard as I should have been if I wanted to sort of just pursue it full time. And then lost that fight. That was up at featherweight, dropped back down to my natural weight class of bantamweight, then went on a 2-fight win streak, won a belt, amateur title belt, then did the IMAFs, which was 3 fights in 3 days. So I fought Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which was rough on my body, but it was great fun because I only have to do 1 fight camp for it. Because I love fighting, but I hate fight camps because they suck, because they're hard. So being able to smash up 3 fights off 1 fight camp was great.
Yeah. So obviously those 3 fights, they're at the start of 2024, weren't they?
Yeah, they were in March, because it was actually, I think I fought on the 5th, 6th, and 7th or something like that, around that time. Yeah. And then it was, I think it was a week after that, they shut all international flights.
Oh, wow.
And then a week after that, we started to go into like the full lockdown. So it was like the last fight show. I'm pretty sure it was the last fight show in Australia before the lockdown.
Wow, that must have been quite some time for you, especially. But I'm glad you got those 3 fights in, even though it was one after the other. Like you said, no extra fight camp would have made a big difference for you. Would have kept you nice.
Exactly right.
I mean, in one sense, you'd be in fight form, but obviously back-to-back fights would be a bit tiring on the body, I'd imagine.
Oh, man, it was super rough. I remember after the first fight, I was cheering because I was like, yes, I get to fight again tomorrow. Like, you get that adrenaline high. I'm like, I don't have to train or anything. I can just wake up, cut a bit of weight tonight, and then I get to fight tomorrow. But then, like, 3-4 hours later on, I'm like, fuck, my hands are starting to get sore. I've got a black eye already. And I'm like, it's good. I'll be able to fight tomorrow. But then I'm like, man, when I win this, I got to fight again another day.
Yeah.
And same thing after the second day, I copped a nasty kick in my knee, and I already had I ruptured a knee burst about 3 weeks before. So I had about 40 mils of fluid actually on my left knee. So it was just like, it sounds good, but I had like a tit on my knee. It was just jiggling with like blood and fluid and that. So then on the last day, my knee actually seized up pretty bad, like in the morning. So I ended up having to like self-massage for like 30 minutes, apply heaps of cream, like try and just stretch the range of motion, because my knee was like pretty much, I could bend it to here, but I couldn't extend it. So I had to like just sort of get one of the guys I was staying with, just had to like try and just jimmy my knee through positions, try and get a range of motion for the last fight, which ended up, it worked well because it opened up the knee and that. But then I remember walking to the venue, I was like, all I got to do is sort of switch on as soon as I get here, win the fight, and then I can bitch and whinge if I need to afterwards. But like as soon as you're in that arena, like mind shift, change, mentality is like, you're here to win, you're here to fight. It doesn't matter what else is going on. Like you're here to win, sort of thing.
That's quite a crazy start for you at the start of 2020. How was the lockdown period for you? Was it a bit shitty or?
Oh man, I'm like super an energetic person in general. So lockdown was horrible. Like I'm doing like 2-3 days normally, and even I'm just always doing something. If I'm not training, I'll be out going to the beach, out walking or something like that. I just always, some people, they like to relax in their downtime, is like chilling out, watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Me relaxing is like, I might go for a run or like go rock climbing or something like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah, it would have been.
So as soon as that lockdown came and I'm just meant to do an hour of exercise outside each day, and that's pretty much it, man. I was going insane.
Yeah, I know, like even personally, I'm not the most active person, but I quite like sports and stuff, and I have to be doing something. I think within the first week, I learned how to do a Rubik's Cube just to occupy my mind. It was something I've always wanted to do, but I was like, I just have nothing. I was starting ordering random stuff off Amazon just to keep me occupied. It was a bit of a hell time.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good idea to learn. That would have been a good idea to learn a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, well, I think I made a bet with my girlfriend. If I can't do a Rubik's Cube by Christmas, I have to buy her a dog. So that was a bit of motivation for me.
Yeah, that's a lot of incentive, actually.
So I think, I went for it quite quick. Obviously, your 2020 started like that. Did you think it would end with your pro debut happening in November?
Not really, because I was planning on doing the Worlds or the IMAF. That's the reason I wanted to do the Oceanic. I wanted to win that, sort of establish myself as the #1 like Australian seed sort of thing, then go over and just sort of see how I'd go against like the world's best competition as amateurs and that.
Yeah.
But then obviously with the Corona, shut everything down. So it was, I think Worlds is meant to be in like September or October, and then once we sort of got everything coming back to normal, my coach is like, I can get you a fight in November on Eternal MMA. But he's like, do you want to do amateur or pro? And realistically, it was either do another amateur fight to stay amateur so I could go to the Worlds.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I don't want to have to wait another 12 months for this. And who even knows if we can travel by then? So I was like,
Yeah.
nah, time's right. I feel good. Let's go pro and sort of start the next step in my career.
Yeah. So obviously that fight, I watched it personally on UFC Fight Pass down in my house. How was that whole fight week experience for you? Because obviously it ended with the result you would have wanted. It was a clean fight. It was very good. So how was it all, the whole fight week for you?
It was great because there was 3 of us boys meant to fight, me, Trent Girdham, and Nelson Empiro. But unfortunately, Trent actually got knocked back at the border due to passing through a hot spot. They checked his bank details and just that whole stupid, like, Sydney 2-week law or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was meant to be main event. So that sort of threw a spanner in the works. But then it was still me and my teammate Nelson. So we flew up, I think, like, we had to get up at like 4 a.m. or something early to drive up to Sydney, get the fight. Then we had a day before weigh-ins to just sort of chill and relax, which was good because just go sightseeing because obviously you can't eat or really drink anything the day before weigh-ins. So made the most of it. We went to movies, went to the arcade, sort of just piss-farted around, had a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Made the weight super comfortable for both of us. And then, fight day came and it was super, how would I say? It was a great sort of production and very smoothly run sort of promotion attorney.
Yeah.
Like, they would say, hey, Fight Pass starts at 7, first fight, 5:07. As soon as this fight's done, interview's over, get ready for your walk. It was super, well produced. So sort of everything was set for times and they're on time with everything. So it sort of made it a bit easier. Whereas sometimes you can fight, even in the IMAX, like, your number 10 fight, and you don't know if it's 10 first round finishes, you might be up in an hour and a half. It's 10 long decisions and they chuck an intermission or 2 in there. You might be waiting 2.5 hours. So it's sort of hard to predict. But with this, we had a set schedule for everything. So I knew when we had to start the warm up, do all of that stuff, get the hand wrap. So it was a great experience.
Yeah. So obviously the fight itself, you won by a rear naked choke, which I'm getting the feeling you quite favour to try and win that way. It seems, because I remember watching it and you landed a clean right hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was watching it yesterday with my friend because I was showing, because I was like, oh, Colby's coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
And then I was watching and you managed to go from being standing to rear naked choke in 20 seconds. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, that's sort of, I sort of call it like my finishing move.
Yeah.
Like I'm very good at controlling my back. I don't have 1,000 attacks from there, but if I can get your back, I'm very confident in my ability to stay on your back, slowly grind you out and secure the finish like I did.
Yeah.
And I was actually surprised because I heard the clappers go as soon as I got the back, and I knew the guy was tough. So I'm like, obviously, if I had more time to work, I could sort of get a nice deep choke and slowly sort of get the squeeze out of him. But I'm like, man, I'm just going to have to rush it. But worked fine anyway. I sort of, as soon as I got under his chin, hand around back of the neck, I think like 2 or 3 seconds in, hand was already asleep. So it worked out well for me.
Yeah, obviously for you, I think that's probably the best pro debut you could have wanted. Round 1, rear naked choke, it's pretty solid. So obviously with the whole fight week for you, how do you go about handling making weight? Do you find it challenging or? I'm
lucky. So shout out to my dietitian, Geordie, the fight dietitian. I work with him. So he does all my sort of nutrition. Pretty much he just tells me what to eat, when to eat, and I just sort of follow his protocol. And this camp was my, obviously because of a lockdown and that, and I had an injury that set me back and out of action. So I actually put on a fair bit of weight. Yeah. So working with him, it was actually my biggest weight cut I've done to date yet, but it was also my easiest weight cut because working with professionals. So I only had to sweat out, I think, a kilo on fight day. So it was 20 minutes in a bath, about 25 minutes in some hot towels in a sweatsuit. And man, it was like wasn't even an effort sort of thing. It was crazy. Yeah. So obviously 2020 for you, I'd say overall, for most people, it wasn't always the best, but I think for you, professionally wise, it was quite a solid year for you. What are your plans for next year? Next year, I want to just establish myself as one of the best bantamweight professionals in Australia. Yeah. So I just want to fight on as many shows as possible and sort of just get my name out there and work my way, if not to securing a belt. I want to have myself set up to fight for titles in 2022. Obviously, being 1-0, there's sometimes promotions out there when you have a few more fights before they will give you the title fights and that. But eventually, I want to work my way up there. And like I always say, I'm in no rush. Like I'm still only 21. I'm 22 next year. I don't want to be one of the guys who sort of rush in, jump in, trying to take all not the hardest fights, but trying to just rush their career as much as they can. They try and fight, get into the UFC so they can be like, oh, I made the UFC when I was 23. See, so many guys do that, but then you see how they actually perform, where if you can sort of, because once you're in the UFC, you better have all your boxes ticked. You need your wrestling up there, your striking. You can't have any holes in your game, because every victory you get in there, you're in the fight higher and tougher level of competition. And as soon as you sort of show any sort of hole or weakness that gets exposed, you can't sort of learn in between there. You got to have to make sure you got everything secured. Your fundamentals are correct, and you got that good foundation, so you can sort of work your way through there instead of just trying to get in there with a few holes in your game that you haven't fixed, and then getting exposed to that, and then you have to work your way back up again.
Yeah. So obviously, with fighting, I'm curious as to where did the Golden Boy nickname come from?
Came from my coach, Joe, actually.
Yeah.
I think just because I'm his Golden Boy sort of thing, so I just sort of stuck with that sort of thing. So it just works.
You're the Golden Boy, but you can't get away with the cleaning, so...
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I should be the golden cleaner by the looks of things.
Might have to get a vacuum for Christmas, I reckon.
We need to get a portable Dyson. That's what we need.
A portable Dyson.
Yeah, one of the easy ones you can just walk around with.
So obviously, speaking of the UFC, I've got a question for you. If you could build your dream UFC fight card, just 5 fights, what would those 5 fights be? Because obviously there's plenty of options. You can set it wherever you want. It can be in whatever city you'd want. What would you pick?
Yeah. Oh, I'd have to go Australia. Sydney, Australia for sure.
Yeah.
Or the main event, I'd want Volko because he's my teammate.
Yeah.
And who would I want Volko to fight? I'd love to see like Volko versus McGregor, but McGregor at 145. I'd do that main event. Co-main, chuck in Izzy versus John Jones at heavyweight. That'd be sick. Get Brad Riddell. Who should Brad Riddell versus Dustin Poirier or something like that. That'd be a sick fight. Get Dan Hooker as well. Dan Hooker versus like a Charles Oliveira or something as well. Another good lightweight scrap. And get Kai Kara France as well. Yeah. Say Kai versus Figueiredo. So you got like all the Australian and New Zealand boys on it versus like the top contenders. It'd be a stacked card. That'd be sick.
I forgot about some of those picks because I was thinking about it yesterday and I was like, there's so many options.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking like the UFC don't want to put on events that are live until they can get fans, but they could do it down under. And that's what
straight up. Yeah, they could. Half the cards already sorted with the Australian and New Zealand talent sort of thing.
Like, it confuses me. They could easily do it early next year down under. And I'm not going to lie, it would sell out pretty quick.
Oh, 100%. You put a couple of star power names on that, it would sell super quick.
Yeah. So obviously, you mentioned Volko's your teammate. How do you find that being in his fight camps? It must be quite a different pace, I'd imagine, from like starting off fighting to be part of a fight camp for a UFC title.
It hurts. It hurts a lot. Nah, but it's so good because I started training when I was 13 at the gym, and I think he was either fighting at, he might have had a fight at 84. If not, it was definitely 77. Yeah. He was fighting that when I first started there. So it's sort of cool to like see his rise through the ranks, whereas I went more of the jiu-jitsu side. So we weren't really training together that much until I was like 18, 19, started doing the more MMA and that sort of thing. But even just seeing him, like I seen him win like Australian titles, when he won his first world title for PXC, when he was meant to make his UFC debut, then the whole actual card got scrapped, so there was a massive setback there. And then seeing him sort of work his way through the UFC from like unranked fighting top contenders to winning a belt, and I was lucky enough to go over to Vegas with him when he won the belt, so that was another surreal experience.
Yeah. How did the whole Vegas trip go for you personally? Because obviously you're not fighting in it, but it's your friend that is. How was that whole trip? Because I see the Vegas cards and they look unreal, especially that fight, because there was 3 title fights on it, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was
Usman versus Covington.
Nunes versus Jermaine Vandermeer, Usman, Covington, and then Alex and Holloway.
Yeah. How was that whole Vegas trip for you?
Oh man, that was such a fun trip, eh? Like, it was actually funny because I was only 20 back then. So I actually had to use one of my mates from the gym's fake ID. Well, not a fake ID, but his ID. Yeah. Honestly, we look like there's not very much resemblance at all, honestly. And he's 27 and I was 20. And so I went over there. I'm like, well, I'm not sure if this will work. The ID worked perfectly fine everywhere. So there was like no issues with like getting into nightclubs and stuff like that. Like after. That was one of the biggest issues. Like if we can go to an after party, but I'm still underage there, so I have to sort of try and figure it out beforehand. It worked well, but the whole experience, like meeting all the UFC guys, going to the UFC Performance Institute, being backstage at that was my first UFC event I ever went to actually, and I got to be backstage for it. So
not a bad
it was
first one.
such an amazing experience. Even just little things like being on the fighters bus from the hotel to the actual venue. Where you just look around and it's just a bus full of like some of the world's best fighters and coaches. Like such a surreal experience.
Yeah. Outside of Volkanovski, who would you say your maybe top 3 fighters in the UFC?
Favorites to watch?
Yeah.
Definitely Izzy, just because he's such a high level striker. Same with Brad Riddell. I think he's probably going to be one of the next top contenders, if not the champion at 70. And then honestly, I'm a big Francis Ngannou fan too, purely because I just like how he sleeps people. Like he's just if he fights, I think you just have to tune in because you're going to see something.
Yeah, I think he's fought less than a few minutes in his past like 4 or 5 fights because they've all been first round knockouts.
It's ridiculous.
I tell you what, you wouldn't want to step in the cage with him.
No. Man, I want to see him versus John Jones. If John Jones is serious about this heavyweight stuff, I think that would be a super fight.
Well, I think he is because you see a lot of his social media, John Jones is just doing weightlifting. So I'm guessing he's putting on the pounds for it. But I think
it looks like he's pulsing a bit, you might say.
I think the Francis versus Stipe rematch that hopefully happens like before the end of next year. It's got to happen soon. That fight will be interesting.
So. Definitely see how Francis will adapt in that because there's a lot more sort of experience and he's a lot more sort of calm under that pressure now, and he's not so much believing in his own hype in the first fight. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Stipe still gets the victory, but I think it's going to be a lot closer fight than the first one.
Yeah, obviously, I find Francis Ngannou's journeys incredible. Obviously, he went from being a refugee to one of the best heavyweight fighters. It's crazy. He's a specimen of a human, though, because he's huge.
Exactly right. What else is crazy is how you see all the other people where he's from as well. They're all also just built like him. And like, imagine if you just get, like he did, he set up a gym there. So imagine in a gym there, all the killers you can get there from such a young age. It's going to be insane to see what happens a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, it's wild. Do you think that Izzy will fight Jan at 205 for the belt? I kind of think it's going to happen.
I'm almost certain he will, yeah.
Yeah, because I think I heard rumors of they want to do Costa versus Whittaker in March. So I'd imagine it could be for an interim title. But then I saw yesterday Paul Gallen called out Rob Whittaker for a boxing match. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little confused.
Yeah, so was I. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a all right call. And then I was like, actually, no, it's not because he can't fight. He's under contract. 2, he's going to beat the shit out of you in a boxing match. And I was like, Robert Whittaker's probably one of the most liked and nicest guys in all of Australian sports regardless. And you're calling him out. It's not a very good look, I think. Yeah,
I watched it in the stadium and I had to look back as if, did I really hear that? He just bought, and this is no disrespect to Mark Hunt, but Mark Hunt's 46.
Yeah.
Whittaker's he's a lot younger than Gallen. Let's just put it that way.
Whittaker's still in his prime, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's a baffling call out. Obviously, I don't think there'd ever be a need for Whittaker to take that fight. It honestly makes me laugh. It's kind of similar to the Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather call out.
Yeah.
Even that fight, I'm a bit skeptical about that fight, but part of me, I'll say it now on record, I think Logan Paul might win just because of the size advantage. I know I'm going to look like an idiot saying it. I want to be on the record because if it happens, I'm going to come back in February and replay the clip of me saying it.
Exactly right, yeah.
I just look at the height difference and the weight difference and I think if he doesn't have to cut weight, he's got 50 pounds on him.
What's it going to be at the weight? Is it open? Because I know Logan fights at 185 and Floyd was 146 or something for the final fight or something pretty light.
Yeah, so if
maybe 156.
Yeah, if Logan doesn't have to cut weight and he's walking in at 185 against 146.
Yeah.
I'm going to get killed for saying it, but I wouldn't be shocked if I was going to pick one. I'd silently pick that, but I'd publicly say, "Oh, Floyd's got it."
Yeah. I'm confident. Floyd Mayweather, he can do whatever he wants to him. He wants to. Yeah. He wants to knock him out. He's going to knock him out. He just wants to make him miss for, if it's 6, 10, however, he can make him miss.
Yeah.
And like you said, but there's always, I think that's what they're trying to sell. It's that
Yeah.
little what if factor. They're like, oh, what if this, same thing with McGregor, whereas McGregor obviously had that striking background, but they're saying like, oh, what if Floyd's not used to the MMA range and the kind of has that touch of death sort of thing. So they sort of need that hype selling point, because I think if you get Logan Paul, who was the exact same weight as Floyd Mayweather, they're like, this YouTube star is going to get killed.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, this giant YouTube star, he's a 2 pro boxing fight, outweighs Floyd by, like, they'll exaggerate, they might say 50, 60 pounds, he's looking cute, like, just to sort of get more eyes on the event and that, but I still think Floyd's going to do whatever he wants to him.
Oh, look, in February when I get absolutely roasted for it, I'll take it. But I just, in case in one way or another it actually happens, I want to be the one that said, I called it, but I feel like in February I'm going to look like a bit of a mug. So it should be good. Obviously, as well as that, I saw that Jake Paul called out Conor McGregor, which to me is possibly the dumbest thing possible.
Yeah, I know. And then he went and I think threw water balloons or like trash at Dylan Dennis or something as well. I don't think he's not setting himself up great, because them sort of guys, they don't care if they see you out and they won't fight you. If they're on the street, they will fight you, sort of thing. They won't have to wait for it to be in a ring, sort of thing.
He went after them, and then he went after the Diaz brothers as well. And I don't know about you, but the last thing I'd want is McGregor and Diaz to team up to beat the shit out of me. It wouldn't go too well.
I think they're trying to get a little bit in over the heads here, to be honest. Even if it's not them, like, look at some of the guys, Nate Diaz, like the scrap pack and that, like some of them boys, they don't give a fuck, to be honest. They'll just, if they see him out walking at an event or something, they'll just go up and start bashing him. They don't care, sort of thing.
Well, you know both those groups just aren't no nonsense, because I always remember when Conor he got a private jet for his mates over from Ireland to New York just to back up Artem Lobov. So it's like you don't want to be on that side of things. It's
the wrong side of the people, exactly right.
Yeah. So obviously, before we go, I just want to get any tips for you on people who are looking to start on martial arts, not even a career, but just looking to partake in a martial arts. What would you say is like sort of starting point for them?
Biggest thing is that if you're thinking about starting and you're not 100% sure, just start. Because I guarantee it's either going to 2 ways. You're either going to fall in love with it and you're going to be like, man, I'm happy I'm started now and I didn't sort of keep putting it off. Or worst case, you find out it's not for you. At least you didn't waste all that time limbering around, sort of where you could have been. You might not find your passion in mixed martial arts. The next thing you might chase, you might actually find your passion in that. But if you wait all this time to get started, just sort of not doing anything, I feel like you're sort of limiting yourself to what you can do. So I always believe you sort of should try and get comfortable with everything. So if you jump in martial arts and you love it, you're like, man, I'm happy I'm starting. Because like they say, the best time to start was yesterday and the second best time is to start today. So I've had lots of mates in that, like, man, I wish I would have started this sooner. I'm like, I know you wish you could have, but you didn't. But you got to look at it, like, at least you started now. There are some people who are like, they get that scared, that anxious, that they might waste a year of not doing it. Then they start and they're like, man, I wish I would have just sort of bit the bullet, showed up and started training. Because if anybody trains, I know what it's like it can be pretty daunting, but you do your first 10 classes, you might have the nerves there, but then it gets less, and then you become sort of part of that community environment, and then you don't even think about like going to class. It's just something you do.
Awesome. Well, Colby, thank you for coming on this morning. I really appreciate your time. All the best for 2021. I look forward to cover what you're doing. And thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Much, man. Legend, my man. Thank you very much, bro.